So what we were looking at on Friday were these factors that impacted the movie industry. And, oh, you have one of those. Do you have one of those darker markers? Oh, okay, thanks. Capital, and by capital here, I'm going to use it in the accounting / finance sense of just basically good old-fashioned money. How are we going to finance these things? Let's remember we've got anytime production and consumption are occurring at different places or at different times, you need present value analysis. I mean, that's just the way that it is. So we have with movies production that's occurring at one point in time, and then the revenue from that occurring over a multiple period of time going far into the future, and can go into far in the future as long as, I guess, people are continuing to pay for it. We also saw how that could work out in terms of things like tax shelters that artists have, how we can actually make movies look like they're losing money, kind of what it's actually called Hollywood accounting, right? We also saw this in terms of, we've kind of already basically discussed most of this, but that would be in essence our exhibition, right? And that kind of goes back to our 1948 consent decree. And you remember what the consent decree did is that it made the studios give up their theaters, all right? So that in essence, they couldn't be completely vertically integrated. There had to be some competition basically at that level. And of course, kind of what we saw with that, and we kind of saw this briefly last time, was in essence, once you had this, you had these steep declines basically in the amount of people going to see the movies, and the reason is because they in essence kind of increased price. Well, the whole reason they increased price is because if you're not vertically integrated anymore, you're selling the end product, right? If you have complete control over the product from start to finish, right? I mean, in essence, when we saw the consent decree come out, it's basically when you saw revenues at essentially at the movie theater essentially kind of begin to decline in constant dollars, right? And of course, the reason for that is it's not just television, it's other things as well. The consent decree has a big part of that as well because the theaters are in essence raising price. And we've already discussed to a large degree how this has impacted things, right? And so we saw in essence, for example, the theaters moving more towards concessions, right? Wanting to ensure that the ratings were correct in that, for example, I mean, having more play here on things like ratings, right? Because ratings determine who can go see the movie and who can't go see the movie. And if there's fewer people coming to see the movie, then there's fewer people coming to play or to eat concessions, right? So for example, you've got the movie Natural Born Killers. And this is the one with Woody Harrelson from several years ago. This initially had an NC-17 rating. So what does an NC-17 rating actually mean for a movie? You've got G. What's G? General audience. PG is what? Parental guidance. PG-13. Kids under 13, you might want to talk to them about it. What's R? Kids under 17 can't go? Kids under 17 can go, they just can't go by themselves. What's NC-17? They can't go at all, right? So if you have an NC-17 rating on a movie, it's a death sentence. It's not going anywhere. No theater is going to show it, right? Because you can't make any money from it. The only people that can go are people that are over the age of 17, right? And who tends to go to the movies more, younger people or older people? Younger people, right? So you've in essence cut out a huge amount of your market, right? So you have this movie NC-17. So Oliver Stone resubmits this guy. He does a whole lot of editing. He resubmits the thing 5 times for review. Finally gets the rating down to an R, only after making 150 different changes in the movie. You have the exact same thing for Stanley Kubrick, right? He had a movie called Eyes Wide Shut. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. It also had an NC-17 rating, right? So you have a lot of full frontal nudity. You've got orgy scenes in there. I mean, the whole movie's about sex. I mean, that's what it is. It's just a giant sex movie, all right? So in essence, Warner Brothers, they paid, say $500,000 to have, to digitally insert figures, people, in front of the people that are completely naked to get the movie rating down to an R. Because if it's NC-17, it's not going to show it. The theaters aren't going to show it. Why should they show the NC-17 movie, which isn't going to make any money, when they can show these guys and make a whole lot more money? There's just no reason to it, right? So we have these types of things here, right? We have that whole idea of playing to those quadrants. We have that whole idea that we've seen here in terms of time, right? When we talked about this when we were looking at maximum revenue. The whole reason they want to keep movies under a certain time frame is to ensure that they can get enough showings throughout the day, because it takes time to clean afterwards and everything else. So they'll cut things out. That's why you have these director cuts that can be 2.5, 3 hours long for the movies, and the movie that you see in the theater is like 2 hours long. And a lot of times it doesn't make any sense. All right. So, I mean, like here's another example. I mean, you had Ice Age, right? This is the animated comedy with Ray Morano as the elephant or whatever from the thing, right? This was initially designed to be a movie for like adults. It wasn't designed as a kids movie. They designed it as an adult movie, all right? And when they were doing the surveys, they found out, we think this thing that actually would play well to kids rather than to adults. And so they went back in, made some editing changes, rewrote some of the script. The artists came back, the actors came back and redid some few lines to put in some things in there. And they reorganized this thing as a kids movie, right? Or you've got things like The Bourne Identity with, what's his name, Matt Damon. Right? Kind of the same thing here. This was targeted toward, I mean, who's the target audience for this guy, right? Remember, we got these 4 quadrants: male, female, young, old. Who's the target audience for this guy? Young males, right? It's these people right here. That's who that movie's targeted towards, right? So they're doing the movie. The surveys show, you know what? There's too much thinking in this movie. It's too cerebral for people. This doesn't make any sense. There's too much talk. We need more action, right? And so they went back and they included some scenes. They had an additional 20 minutes of the movie shot in 2 weeks' time. This is, remember, this is when they're already done. They're done. Everyone's dismissed. They're showing the movies. They're showing the movie to target audiences, to survey audiences. They fill out the surveys. From the surveys, they decide, okay, we're going to have a 3,000 screen release, 500 screen release. We're going to release it in New York and LA only. We're going to release it nationwide, etc. That's when they discovered the problem. Calling everyone back, right? Shot 20 minutes within 2 weeks' time, which is really, 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 really fast, right? Inserted a whole bunch of stuff, right? So you have like a gun battle in the stairwell, right? I don't know if you guys remember the movie or not, but when they're coming down, they're having the gun battle in the stairwell and they all fall. You know, Matt Damon gets the guy and he takes him all the way down, 4 or 5 flights of stairs. The guy hits the ground and Matt Damon gets up. That was shot here. That was shot at the very end, all right? They're trying to include more action in there to try, because the theaters are saying, look, our surveys show this thing ain't going to make us any money. We're not that interested in the product, all right? The studios have to go back and make all these types of changes. You also have here, in terms of exhibition, some other things going on in terms of the theater size. What they will do, for example, the American with Disabilities Act from 1990 says that once a theater hits 300 seats, you have to be able to provide wheelchair access, not to some seats. What do you think? To all seats. How expensive is that going to be? To be able to provide wheelchair access to every single seat. You can't have the theater seats being as close as they are. They have to be spread out. When you guys have been to a theater and you've seen the parts where the people in wheelchairs sit, you've got all that space there. They're missing out an entire row. So how do you think theaters respond to stuff like this? Exactly. You build small theaters, right? You have the theaters be relatively small. You also have other things in terms of trying to help keep costs down, so you can have, like, say, a single projectionist running, say, 8 movies at a time. They can show movies slightly out of focus, and the reason that they show movies slightly out of focus, so if you're in a movie theater and you're looking at it, it looks slightly out of focus, it's not because your eyes are going bad, or maybe it is. But in essence, if you have one projectionist running 8 movies at a time, it can be difficult. It's easy for the film to snag, and once the film snags and breaks, it has to be fixed. So what they will do is that they'll run it so that it doesn't snag as easily on some of the parts, but in order to do that, it actually makes the thing run a little bit out of focus. Now, of course, a digital projector does away with that problem because it's all digital. But of course, digital projectors are extremely expensive too. They cost a whole lot of money. All right. So we have our theater issues, right? Number 4 here was our production and our distribution. And here we've got our major studios. Have substantial library assets. All right. And these library assets can be quite large. So, for example, so here's our number of titles. So here's our theater, here's our number of titles. So you've got, say, 2,500 here, you've got, say, Disney, you've got about 700, you've got Paramount, you've got about 1,100 in there, you've got 20th Century Fox, which of course is just now Fox Studios, you got about 2,100, MGM, about 4,500, Universal, about 4,100, Warner Brothers, about 4,500 titles within their library, right? And these are movies that, of course, can be re-released again and again and again. This is something that, like the new theater here in town, the Alamo Drafthouse, does all the time, right? They are constantly re-releasing old movies, right? So like tonight, Spaceballs is showing, and I know this because my son works there, and he bought tickets. He said, hey, do you want to go see Spaceballs with me? And I was like, sure. So we're going to go watch Spaceballs, right? A movie back from late 80s, early 90s, and a funny movie, especially if you're 20 years old and drunk, right, with your friends. But still, it's a movie within this library. And the interesting thing about that movie is that it is still generating revenue for the theaters, right? I mean, here it is all of this time later. So we have all of these production and distribution issues, right? Where in essence, we're distributing these movies and we can make substantial revenues from these guys. And of course, as we know, those revenue sources have changed significantly, right? So here's where we had, so here we had, say, the number of dollars. These are in 2004 dollars. Right? So in 1948, you had about $7.8 billion, right, in constant dollars. And, you know, obviously DVDs and TV are zero, free TV is zero. Almost all of the money is coming from the theater, right? It's all coming from these people right here. But the producers and distributors don't have to necessarily depend on the theaters as much as they used to. Because you can see here, theater revenue, this is back in 2004, it had already fallen to 16.5%, right? Because you have all these other different sources, video and DVD, TV pay, TV free. So as you can see, total revenues there in 2004, about $45 billion, right? Or another way to look at it is here are the movies that are essentially in the $1 billion club. And this isn't all of them, this is just some of them. So you can see here these different revenue sources and how much is coming from these different revenue sources. So for example, Harry Potter US rentals 260 million, foreign rentals 330 million, VHS DVD sales 436, US TV, foreign TV, other rights 1.249 million, right? That's just in the ancillary market. That's not in the theater market. That's not in box office. That's just in these other production and distribution methods, these other ways of distributing the movie as wide as we can possibly go, right? Or for, let's say, who's the biggest one on here? It may be the Harry Potter one. Looks like it is. Which one is the smallest? It looks like 1087. Right, so there's Attack of the Clones. 155 million in US rentals, 172 in foreign rentals, 480 in US sales, 85 million in US TV, 95 in foreign TV, 100 million in other rights, right? And these other rights are all these other types of things. When you watch the movie on a plane as you're going to China or Japan or Europe or South America or whatever, right? The airplane is paying for that right. I mean, the studio is making money from that. They're not just giving that money away. So we have an industry here that has this structure, this kind of oligopolistic structure in terms of production. Lots of different sources of sales and revenue and producing things that are going to, wanting to make movies that are going to appeal to a wide audience and hopefully produce revenue, a stream of revenue, right? Not just a one-time revenue, but you want a stream of revenue for a long time. Very similar to what's been happening within the music industry, right? And the music industry is kind of very, very similar, right? You have this oligopolistic structure. You have an industry that has undergone significant changes. And we want to know and understand, well, how are they going to deal with these types of changes? What types of things can they engage in? What type of problems have they been facing? How do they make money? Right, etc. So what we have in the music industry, we have several different problems. Right? We have in the past alleged price fixing, where in essence they were setting the prices of music. Same sort of things that we had in the music and the movie industry, where you had all these antitrust problems, where in essence the government is saying, you know what, we think you guys are colluding. Or the same things that we had in the movie industry, where they're saying, you know what, we're going to get together and we're going to set the format. We don't want any more of this VHS, Betamax war stuff. We don't want any more of this DVD, Blu-ray, HD DVD stuff. We need to get together and collude, set something up, right? The exact same issues that we have here in the music industry, where in essence the firms are getting together and essentially setting prices. You have widespread use of something called payola, all right? And we'll see that in a little bit more detail later on, but in essence payola is basically like a pay-to-play sort of thing, right? And you have copyright infringement. By your customers, right? So you have a whole bunch of different problems that have all kind of come together, and some of these are in the past and they're still kind of dogging the industry. Some of them are still continuing to this day. And how the industry is going to deal with this, right? So what we've seen, this industry is kind of interesting. It's evolved over the past 100 years or so from an industry that has high fixed cost and high marginal cost to low fixed cost very low marginal cost. Okay. So we've seen this industry change significantly. So for the first 50 years or so of the industry, it was dominated by a small number of firms. Okay. So from 1890 to about 1903, there were in essence 3 different firms. These guys were Victor, Columbia, and Edison. Okay. So they produced these audio-related playbacks on these wax cylinders. Okay. They also produced the record players themselves. Okay. So in essence, I mean, what these cylinders are, and you can actually go to Google and look it up, and I'd show you, but it would take 20 minutes to bring it all up. So if you go to Google and you just type in wax cylinders, music, or whatever it is that you want to do, it doesn't really matter. It's just a little cylinder. It looks like this, except it's larger, right? And just like you guys know, when you have a music box and you wind the music box and there's that little cylinder and it's got all those little bitty things on that, and you've got these little bitty like little fingers and stuff of metal, and they're all a different thickness and things, and when it runs over the little dot, it makes the thing make music. That's in essence what it is. So you have these little wax cylinders that have all those little dots on them, and you stick it in there and crank it up and you play it. Okay. So these things, of course, all have patents. And these patents are a substantial barrier to entry for obvious reasons. And in order to make these, you have to pay the right, and people don't necessarily want to do that. So a lot of these patents expire about 1914. You have a huge number of firms coming into the industry. Right? We know that patents basically protect the inventor of a product, right? It gives them a certain amount of monopoly power for a certain number of years, about 17 years. Why would they do that in the first place? Why would we encourage people to be a monopolist? Why have a patent? What does that do? If I invent something and patent it, I'm the only one who legally has the right to make it. I can do whatever I want to do with it. I don't have to be the sole person. I can give it away if I want to. But if I want to be the only person that makes it, I can be that person. Why would we have that? Why would we, in essence, encourage a monopolist?
To introduce the technology?
Yeah. Because what happens if I go out and invent something? So I go out and I invent product X. If there's no patent, then what does that mean? If we have no patent laws, everybody can do it. So I've invested all the time and money in research and development. I'm the one that developed this product. And then all of a sudden, once the product is out, then in essence, they can all come along and make the product, right? So once you have this patent, right, you have sole monopoly powers for this patent till the patent expires is about 17 years. WD-40, you guys know what WD-40 is? This is a product that is invented, of course, to act like a lubricant and to get rid of rust. They have never patented it. They refuse to patent the product. Why? Why do you think that is?
It can be made a wide range of ways, like the compound to make it.
In order to patent it, you got to say, here are the compounds. Here's how you make WD-40. So once they've done that, if they go out and they patent WD-40 after 17 years, it's all public information. Patents are all public information. So after 17 years, the patent expires. Every other firm that wants to can come in and produce exactly WD-40. And so the formula for WD-40 is in a sealed vault. And only like 2 people know the combination to the vault. And this group over here mixes these parts of the chemicals, and another plant on the other side of the country mixes the other parts. They bring them together, and this other third person, and nobody knows who's mixing what how. All right? Same thing with Coke, right? The actual formula for Coke is not patented, because once you patent it, you can actually go out and you can make that particular product after 17 years, and you can sell it. You can sell something that tastes exactly like Coke, right? This is why you have things on like new medicines and stuff. So people are always saying, well, we've got these patents here, you know, these drug companies are making things. Well, for obvious reasons, right? Because the marginal cost, I mean, when you're looking at a new drug, the marginal cost, the cost to make the drug themselves is just a few dollars for the chemicals that you bring together, right? The marginal cost to make the drug isn't the problem, it's the fixed cost. It's the years and years and years and years of research and development to get to that drug, all right? So what you do is you have these patents that in essence gives them some monopoly protection for some period of time so that they can in essence hopefully try to make up this fixed cost, because once the patent expires, then you can have generics of these products, right? And so the brand name will sell for whatever price it is, $50 a month. The generic can sell for $3 because the marginal cost to make the drug is only $3 per 100 pills. Whereas the average total cost, right, including this fixed cost, might be, say, $500 per 100 pills, or whatever the number is. Yes?
Can you extend your patent?
No. You cannot. That's why there's such a huge rush to get drugs to market. The patent clock starts once you submit it. And you can't do any drug tests on people until you've submitted the drug. So you don't have the full 17 years. Here's year 0. Here's where I invent it. Here's 17 years later. All of the drug trials can happen in here. I can't sell the drug. It's not like, oh, once it passes drug trials, then the patent starts. The patent starts as soon as you submit it, and you have to submit it to the FTC in order to have the drug trials on people. And that can take 10 years. And so you only have 6 to 7 years to actually sell the drug to make up for all of these costs. It's kind of an interesting market. So we have these industries here that have these patents. You can't enter this industry. Now the patents are gone. You can have a whole bunch of other firms coming into the industry. Here's the problem though. It's still a high fixed cost, high marginal cost industry. Producing and recording music is very expensive. Each individual wax cylinder is made individually. To put that into perspective, here's how it works. Here's your artist with his guitar. All right, I'll try to draw a guitar here. I'm not a very good drawer. There's his guitar. You guys have seen these, I'm sure you have. There are these things that kind of look like this, right? That's the way they looked. So they put the little wax cylinder in there, and then the person would do it and they would record. If I want 10 copies, if I want 10 wax cylinders to sell, there's 2 ways to get that. The first way is have one machine do the song 10 times. What do you think the other way is? 10 machines, I do it at once. Every single one of these wax cylinders has to have their own machine, or it has to be done, the song has to be done individually every single time. So if you want to sell 1,000 copies, You have to have 1,000 machines, and all, of course, 1,000 machines cannot be right here at the same time, right? One of the machines is going to be way over there. Well, its copy isn't going to be very good because the music's here, and it's being recorded way over there at the end of the room. If the person makes a mistake, what happens? Or somebody coughs while you're recording the music. You're done. There's no way to fix the wax cylinder. You have to stop, take the wax cylinder, throw it away. It's completely useless. You have to start all over. So in order to make copies of music, it's incredibly expensive. There's a high fixed cost. There is a high marginal cost. Think of it this way. You're listening to the radio. Think about how expensive this would be. You're listening to 104.7 The Cave. The Rolling Stones are going to come on, and they don't play the Rolling Stones on a record. The Rolling Stones are just there in studio. They play their song, they get out, and then they say, okay, here's the Doors next. And so here come the Doors, and they bring back Jim Morrison from the dead, and he comes and he sings, and then they're done, and then they're like, okay, now here's Pink Floyd. And so Roger Waters and David Gilmour finally get together because they got to play in Springfield, Missouri. So they fly all the way over here, they fly to Springfield, Missouri, they play, then they leave, the next band, the next band, the next band. Can you see how expensive that's going to be? That's going to be incredibly expensive to produce and sell music. In 1892, the total output of all recorded music is 320 minutes. Okay. By 1894, this has only reached 1,000 minutes. Music is expensive. What they find in 1901 is a way to, in essence, mass produce the cylinders. So in essence, they can use a master recorder. And this master recorder can, in essence, be used to kind of make like a cut. And that cut can be used to make the wax copies that you would actually sell. Okay? So each of these original, and I'll just call them masters, each of these original masters can make about 25 copies before they wear out. So let's think about what this means. So here's our guy. We want to sell 2,500 copies of music because we think there's a market for 250 copies. We either need 2,500 devices, or we need, say, 100 devices. Each guy done, the song recorded 25 times, or you need one device, and you do the song 2,500 times. 2,500 times is a lot, right? If the song is, 2 minutes long, that's 5,000 minutes. I don't have my phone with me, or do I? No. What's 5,000 divided by 60? So I guess that'd be 6 divided by 500. What is that, 300? 300 hours? $24, how many hours in a, just assume an 8-hour day. Let's assume a 10-hour day. It's a month. So we want 2,500 copies to sell. We're the artist. The song takes 2 minutes. We're going to work 10 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week for a month to get our 2,500 copies. Right? There's no time to eat. There's no time to go to the bathroom. There's no time to take a break. You have to do it perfectly every single time, blah, 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 blah. Very expensive. Except now, the master can make 25 copies. So if we want 2,500 copies over here, now we only need 100 devices. Right? Or we need one device recorded 100 times, not one device recorded 2,500 times. Right? In essence, you've seen output increase 25-fold. That's what this guy says. It's an instant increase in output of 25-fold. Record the song once, now I can make 25 copies. Whereas before, I would have to do the song 25 times to get 25 copies. Huge increase in output, right? Explosion in output. So obviously, things like this greatly reduce the cost of recording music. You've got another advance in this thing over here, where we go from not one master makes 25 copies, but one master makes several thousand copies before it runs out. Same thing before here, right? Huge explosion in output. We've gone from, I want 2,500 copies, to, okay, I'm going to record this song 2,500 times, to, okay, I only have to record it 100 times, to, I can do it once and make my thousands of copies. In fact, I can sell maybe 5,000 copies of these wax cylinders all at one time. So what we have here is we've seen the cost has come down significantly. You have huge increases in output. Right? And we know average cost how do we figure out what average total cost is? How much do you want to pay the artist here an hour? $1? We'll pay him $1. We've got our 10 devices, right? This is some number, whatever this number is, doesn't really matter. Records the song in 2 minutes. Okay? So he gets 1/30 of $1. Right? So now we're paying him 2 cents, 3 cents. We'll pay him 3 cents. What's true about this guy versus this guy? This guy's a whole lot smaller than this guy. Right? The cost of music is coming down. It's huge decreases. It's not minor decreases. It's not going from $10 to $9. It's going from hundreds of dollars to make music to tens of dollars to make music. It's becoming extremely cheap. Okay, we'll pick it up from here on Wednesday.